Pretty good. Thanks for the introduction, Andreas. We've been, very busy still. So I know we've done a couple of these as the year has went along, and it's been very steady. It's been very busy. I found that for a lot of the business owners I work with, sheltering in place, quarantining has either been a little bit more relaxed for them because maybe they have a industry that's a little harder to do with the shelter in place. And then a lot of business owners, I know they have been busier than they have ever been. We're probably not necessarily up at that level, but we're definitely been pretty busy. I'm sure you can appreciate how steady everything's been going since all this has started.
And so, as we mentioned with the title, we're celebrating Pride and the start of July. Jay, how was your Pride this year?
It was pretty good. It was pretty good. It was very different this year. Typically I would get out, there'd be a little bit more celebrations happening, especially in San Francisco. We're celebrating 50 years of Pride in San Francisco and many communities. This is 50 years since the marches started to kind of celebrate Stonewall, so it's big for us. A lot of big achievements for us. We had a big victory at the Supreme Court last week where sexual orientation and gender identity were determined to be sex discrimination for employment. So that's huge news. We made a lot of progress in 50 years. So there was a lot to celebrate. Pride definitely this year was very entwined with the Black Lives Matters movement. So there was a lot of protests been going on in June, and that carried through into Pride because we deal with a lot of more elderly people, people with compromised immune systems. I can't necessarily go and participate in a protest, but I was definitely there online. And I was able to see Juanita Moore had a big protest that was at City Hall, and they came to the Castro. So I was able to see that from a distance. So I definitely appreciate everybody getting out and showing solidarity for equality and justice. So that was very good to see, and it's very different than what we may be accustomed to with Pride. One of the other things when somebody asked me what I had done for Pride this year, I was kind of like, just take my dog for a walk. But it was actually nice because this year, Patrick Carney, who's actually on my Facebook, he's over the Pink Triangle. He's done hard work getting that up for many years. This year with COVID and social distancing, it was going to be a little harder to get those cloths up. So Illuminata, that does the Bay Bridge lights, actually did the Pink Triangle light. So it's actually illuminated on Twin Peaks this year. So if there are people that are out in San Francisco and haven't been around the Castro to see that late at night, it's really worth getting out. It's a nice art installation on the top of Twin Peaks. It adds a lot to it. And, for a year where there was not a lot of celebration, that definitely gave us the ability to get out and do something nice for Pride. That was kind of one nice little thing. And I got to get out and experience that with Gabriel. I was looking for a great place to do our little Pride presentation today. So me and Gabriel's thrown today. But anyway, it's been good. It was a good Pride. It's very different than what I've experienced before in the past, but still celebrating all of our victories and looking to, everybody unite for equality and justice and move forward. And I think we're definitely heading that direction.
Yeah, I got a chance to drive by and see the Pink Triangle the other day, and it looked spectacular. Gave a lot of hope.
Yeah, well, just to think that was a symbol of oppression that was kind of used during the Holocaust. So to turn that into something on a more positive note, it's a lot to experience, and it's nice being in a city that appreciates that.
And while we're on the note of Pride, do you mind telling our viewers about the open house that we work with?
Well, Open House is the LGBT Senior Center in San Francisco. A lot of LGBT seniors have to go back in the closet whenever they start needing care because they have to move into a home like assisted living. Maybe they even go into an independent living that's not as open. They're not in a San Francisco market. And sometimes even some of the places in San Francisco are not supportive enough that you feel like you can be out and be safe because it all comes down to being safe. So open house is really changing the dynamic of protecting LGBT seniors and making sure that people who've been out for 40 and 50 years, they're going to be safe being out. They're going to be able to be themselves. So we're creating that type of community. Being that we're kind of working with senior populations, people with vulnerable medical conditions, what we're having to do is, do stuff a little bit differently. They do some I think at prom during Pride, and they were doing all that virtually. They've done some virtual drag shows. So there's a lot of ways you can help open house. Open house is still fundraising to make sure that our LGBT seniors are protected and they're getting what they need. So definitely, we'll put some links in the Facebook chat later for openhouse.org where you could go and donate if you wanted to. But it's a very good organization that's looking to take care of our gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, queer seniors and making sure that they're protected.
It's always nice to hear some good news happening, right?
Well, it's good that everybody's found ways to kind of keep their sense of community and the things that they love up and going. So everybody's found ways to do stuff virtually, which, even me and you's adjusted to doing more stuff virtually.
So speaking of that, what kind of cases have you been dealing with this month, being virtual and just seeing what's happening through June?
Well, when we definitely first started this, we picked up a lot of cases of pre-planning, which is always good when we get people in to do planning early. Over the past month, we've unfortunately had a lot of clients, family members of clients who have passed away. These are not COVID-related illnesses, but people still unfortunately get sick and die. So we've been dealing with stuff. Some people had plans in place and they had some trust in place, and it makes it a little easier on their families. But others have not put any planning in place. So we're going to do full-blown probate administrations. We're able to help both ways, both when people have a trust in place and they pass away and it needs to be administered on death. We can do those. And also, if unfortunately people have not put any plans in place, then we'll go through the state administered process for probate.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the questions that we've had submitted to us. The first question we have is, with reopening, I don't feel safe. What do I need to protect me in case I get COVID?
Okay. So I don't want anybody to be so alarmed at getting COVID that you can't live your life and keep moving forward. But what we want to do is put plans in place so that we don't have this additional stress of what's going to happen to us if something does happen. A lot of people won't get COVID. A lot of people are going to get COVID and not get sick. But the problem is there are vulnerable at-risk groups, whether we're talking with seniors, people have other immunodeficiency issues, a little bit more susceptible to getting sick. Those people we want to protect. And to protect those people, because we don't have a vaccine, the way we have to do that is, we have to wear masks, we have to make sure everybody's protected. But there are people that are getting sick who are healthy, that don't have underlying health conditions. So we want to make sure that if something happens and we're one of those people, that we're not stressed worrying about what's happening with our estate plans, what's happening with our mortgage, what's happening with our rent, what's happening with our business, what's happening with our rental properties. How are we protected? So we want to think too about the biggest thing is protecting yourself, because you're the most important thing. Nobody's protected if you're not safe. So we want to make sure our person's protected. So that's why we need a healthcare directive. which is the determination of what type of life-sustaining measures you want, which are very important with COVID because you're going to be having those measures if you have, worse symptoms. The other thing is that we have a lesser version of those. We have a more detailed personal care plan about how we want to be treated on a daily basis, how our money is going to be spent on us. So we want to give that type of planning so that people know what we want. People know what we want in a COVID versus non-COVID situation. So you need a healthcare directive that reflects that. You also want a power of attorney, because that's where we're talking about the rent getting paid, the mortgages getting paid, the business being ran. You need a document so that somebody can step up and start acting for you with what you have going on. So like if you know that you're going to be medically protected and you had somebody make decisions for you and you discuss that with them, and you know you're going to be financially protected because somebody can pay your mortgage, pay your rent, then you're going to have a lot more peace right now because you know you have planning in place. One of the better mechanisms for doing that is by creating a trust. A lot of people think of a trust just as a document used for death to transfer assets and avoid the high probate fees. But it's actually a document that works during your life when you're living and helps you plan for your disability. So you're giving a set of instructions about what's going to happen when you can't make them for yourself. So what typically happens is people walk around in life, they have their house, they have their investment accounts, they have their stocks, they have whatever their assets are. And those are just in boxes they hold. If something happens and they become disabled, those boxes just hit the ground. And we have to wait. If they have a power of attorney, then that person can come pick them up. If they don't, we're waiting for court orders for somebody to handle their assets. If somebody passes away, those boxes are just hitting the ground. And it doesn't matter whether you have a will or not a will, you still are waiting for a court order for somebody to handle your affairs. If you have a trust, instead of holding those boxes directly in your hand, we take those boxes and we put them in the little red wagons that a lot of people had as kids growing up. So instead, if something happens to you, those boxes hitting the ground, those boxes are still safe in your little red wagon. So they're exactly where you left them. The only thing that hits the ground is the handle. And the handle is your instruction. And who's going to come and pick that handle up is your successor trustee, somebody you named. And they're not waiting for a court order to do it. They're not waiting for the government to give them permission. They're taking the set of instructions you have about how you want your money spent on you, how you want it spent on your loved ones, where you want it to go when something happens to you. And they're going to follow those instructions exactly like you've laid out. So it really makes sure you stay in control. And if you stay in control, then you feel very safe with what's going on. So that's kind of what I would get people to think about is if you want to feel safe during this time of COVID and you feel a little unsafe and like you're not protected, you definitely want to get some proper estate plannings in place that's got your full set of instructions of what you want to have happen.
I always love the analogy with the red wagon. I think it's like brilliantly clever. And just to clarify on that, so the red wagon is almost like a way to keep the government out of your affairs, and then whoever you assign to help you could just take control from the moment that you're really unable to take control.
Well, it's exactly what you said. It's that because what we want to do is we want to make sure that we have control, but we want to make sure like we're exercising that control. Like the government has a set of instructions of what happens to us, but do we want what the government says, or are we more capable than the government to decide what happens with us and what happens with our stuff? And I think most people would agree that they feel like they can make a better decision about their body and about what they have versus the government. So that's why we want that full set of instructions about what's going to happen to us. And the problem is sometimes if you just go and pull something off LegalZoom, or you get some blank form or something, it just doesn't accomplish what you want it to accomplish because it doesn't have enough detail in it. It wasn't wrote to the level to be specific to your life. So that's why the trust we do are so good in our office, because you're going to maintain control exactly like you have control now.
And like you said about just the simpler trusts, those are really designed not to keep you in mind at all. Like, obviously, we all have all types of family dynamics and financial situations. So, with our firm and with your expertise, we really get it to where it caters to everything our clients need and benefits them in the best possible way.
That's exactly right. And we're just thinking, like, we didn't do some of this trust drafting that we received. And of course, if people did not put plans in place, they didn't work with us to put those plans in place. But we're dealing with some clients now where the father, had somebody that was younger, and the will got changed right before he died, and now it's changed 60% to that new person who is disinheriting the children. And that's because proper plans weren't put in place a long time ago to really reflect what he wanted and to keep stuff like that from happening, making sure that there was control when he lost a little bit of capacity. We're dealing with somebody else, and they actually had an attorney draft these documents, but the attorney was not very thorough. They would probably be what we refer to sometimes as a trust mill, where you go in and they're creating, I don't know, 1 million trusts a month or whatever they do, and they're just throwing names in the blank. The math on the trust that we have doesn't even add up. It's got the way to pay the beneficiary, and it's 1/9 one year, 1/8 another year, 1/7 another year. It doesn't even add up to 100%. And when you're working with attorneys that are not thorough like that, it just causes problems. It allows the trust to be challenged. It's really not giving you what you wanted. It's making sure that we have a special needs beneficiary who was a special needs beneficiary when the trust was set up, and the attorney never brought that up. So now we have kind of a government benefit issue we need to work with people. So it's really just, if somebody just does something that's more fill in the blank, there's probably blanks not being filled that should be there, that are not being handled because they're just trying to get a form, but the form's not going to really accomplish their goals. So, if you work with me in my office, I like to be very thorough. Sometimes it takes a little longer to be thorough, but I want to be thorough, and I want to make sure that we're actually handling stuff so that it meets you and your family's needs.
All right, this next question kind of piggybacks off that last explanation, and it says, I don't really feel like I have enough to plan. Are there people who could skip it?
The problem is everybody has their self. So everybody needs to protect their self, kind of no matter how much money, whatever you have going on. You want to make sure that somebody knows what type of medical care you want when you can't make those decisions yourself. Everybody has bills. Everybody has a bank account. Everybody has, sometimes a couple other things. People need access to that, especially if you're disabled, because if you're disabled, that means you're still here. People need authority. If you become disabled and you need government benefits, people need the authority to qualify you for those government benefits. So what we want to do is make sure that we are protecting ourselves in those circumstances. Not everybody, but a lot of people's going to have something to leave when they pass away. So we need some base instructions for that. Some states, not all, Alabama doesn't, California does, smaller administration thresholds. So there's different things you could do to administer small estates. So there's different levels of planning you can do. So we do everything for people. We do more base will plans. If that works in the state you're in or works for the level of assets you have, we can do those. We have base trust plans. They're not going to be as thorough. They're not going to protect your children from their creditors, from their divorces. It's not going to protect them long term. It's not going to do remarriage protection to keep your children from being disinherited. But we have base level plans too. So I don't want people to think just because I'm talking about people that may have rental properties, maybe have investment accounts, that this doesn't apply to them. Or, what I hear a lot of times is, I don't have an estate. But you do, because you have whatever you have now. And if you didn't have it and there were hurdles to you getting it or that money being spent on you, that would probably be a big deal. So that's why we want everybody to have some plans. And I can tell you where you don't want to end up. You don't want to end up in court with a guardianship just to pay your bills with basic stuff. And that's easy to avoid just by having some base estate planning documents.
With all of our clients, every time they're finished with the whole process, you could just see the relief on their faces and how much more comfortable they are with moving forward, especially in this time period.
Well, it's everything with life. Whenever you're able to do one thing and get it off your plate and know that I've taken care of this, and not only that, I've done it in such a way that I actually understand what's happening. I know what's going to happen, and I could kind of explain what I have in front of me, which you would do if you work with us. It just gives you peace of mind. And that peace of mind is not only peace of mind for you, because you're going to have it, it's going to be peace of mind for your loved ones. It's going to be peace of mind for the people you've asked to be your trustees, power of attorneys, because they're going to have such a clear set of instructions about what you wanted. It's not going to feel burdensome for them. And then your family, there's not going to be questions about, should one child have gotten more? Should one child have not? Should everybody be treated equally? What about this person over here? It's all laid out very well when you do a good plan. So there's not really questions about what should and shouldn't have happened.
All right, this next question, you may have answered it a little bit earlier, but we'll just revisit it. And it asks, what does social distancing look like at your law firm in July?
Well, social distancing, and it's changed a little because we've opened up a little bit more. But we're still very cautious. We're very cautious just because I don't want to get sick. We got to protect our employees, so we don't want Andreas or anybody else that's working with us sick. But we definitely don't want our clients to get sick. So even if we're working with clients that's not high-risk clients, we're still putting all these safety protocols in place because we don't want to kind of pass viruses. We still have kind of the option of doing everything virtually. And then if you're local to San Francisco, we can do some social distancing protocols to get signings done. If we're working with people virtually and we're going to do all the signings virtually, like not in front of a notary, we can use online notarization. We can use notaries outside the state of California to get that done. California doesn't offer online notarization. So we can get the entire trust package done. We also have ways to still do the will so that it will be reflected and go through the trust. And we can get the power of attorney and healthcare directive done too. And we can get all that done without meeting in person. For people that are not at high risk and have been taking precautions and not exposing themselves and have been social distancing, we are doing social distance signings. We are doing those. I'm a notary, so I can handle notarizations. We're doing those where we're separating the witnesses and the signers of the document. So we're keeping those separate. We're going over the documents virtually prior to the meeting, so we're not having a lot of conversation there. We're really just signing. Of course, we're all masked up, all hand sanitizer around. I encourage people to bring their own pens, but we're sanitizing the pens, so we're kind of sanitizing any room that we might be in, and some of these we've done outdoors. And we're just making sure that everybody stays safe, stays separate so that they can get stuff done. So estate planning is important. If you got sick, you're definitely going to need it. So it is essential to get done. What you would have to do is kind of decide, is that something we do virtually, or do we go ahead and do a social distance signing? So both of those are available as need be.
And as for the virtual process, I mean, we have a pretty simple process where we really communicate with you the whole way through between our initial meetings and then where we design the meeting for everybody. So just to reiterate for everyone, we can work with you through this whole process virtually, or towards the end, we could, of course, meet for the proper signing.
And that's probably good, Andres, just to run through that process a little. Like, what does it look like if somebody comes in and does estate planning with us? So, say if somebody wanted to reach out from this Q&A, or if somebody wanted to watch an online workshop, which we'll probably offer the end of July, early August, so be on the lookout for that. You could do that, learn a little bit more about estate planning. You can set up a consultation with me. It probably makes the most sense if we're going to do an initial vision meeting to do a video call with me, similar to this, for an hour, and you would send us in some information about your family, and we would just kind of go over everything kind of about your goals, how that ties in with your family, what you have. And then, we'd have some options at the end so you could decide, is there a plan that makes sense for you to move forward? And if so, then what we would do is Andreas would reach out to you then. And he would set you up with a design call, give you the information that we need to design, and then we'd have a deadline for that so that Andreas could work with you to help you meet that deadline. And if we need to, then Andreas would have a meeting for you to close out that part. Then we would determine whether we're doing a virtual signing or a social distance signing. And if we're doing either one of those, we do that signing meeting. We go through the documents before to make sure they're good for the signing, and then we get you signed. That process is typically around 6 weeks. It can go a little bit longer. A lot of this is dependent on how quickly we can get the design done. So we're working with you to make that as efficient as possible.
Earlier, Jay, you mentioned that we unfortunately had some clients, or rather family members of clients, pass away. Do you think that hopefully their family members, loved ones, friends, hopefully learn something about just proper planning and what to do?
Well, I think what happens a lot of times is when people come, a lot of people that do estate planning are doing it, and we do estate planning and we do a little bit of elder law. So on the estate planning, people's went through a probate. It's taking years to get through the probate. Maybe the money's not going out the way they want. It's costing a lot in fees. So people want to avoid that. So a lot of times that's a trigger for people is, my parents, not intentionally, but unfortunately from not planning, actually sometimes put their children in a bind because they don't have proper planning. And they want to make sure they don't do that to their children, to their loved ones. So that actually triggers a lot of people to do estate planning for themselves. Also, when we're thinking of the elder stuff, people might lose the family house to Medicaid, Medi-Cal. People may not have money for long-term care, so they have to spend all the money that their family's kind of been working for and earning on long-term care. So that'll trigger people like, I want to plan for long-term care. I want to make sure that my children are not going to lose all the assets we've been working for. So those are definitely two triggers that comes up a lot of times when we're dealing with a probate and trust administration is, I don't want these type of complications for like my loved ones.
All right, I'm not seeing too many more questions. We'll leave it open for just a moment, but I want to let everybody know that I've put our website in the chat box, both Facebook and Zoom. And then I've also added a link so you could book an appointment with Jay. You could either book an appointment with him and do a proper vision meeting to get started, or if you have questions, you can give me a quick call and we'll just discuss what your next steps would be, and then we'll get started with Jay as well.
And they can book that call with you directly on that side. It's listed as a quick call.
Correct. It's it'll say my name, and it's just a 15-minute call in which we'll just go over really what your situation is, and I'll help you with what you're unsure about, and then from there we'll get you scheduled with Jay. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions, Jay. Zoom looks good. Facebook looks good. All right.
Well, what I want to do is thank everybody who took the time out of their day to join us today. I know we're a little bit into July, but you know, Pride's always such an important time of the year, especially for me as a gay male. So I want to make sure that you know, actually, you know, us as a law firm, you know, at least kind of celebrated Pride a little bit, especially because it looked different this year. If people was able to get out for the 4th, I know there's a little less fireworks and stuff, but there's probably some things you can do to celebrate with your family, loved ones. I encourage everybody to get out, just kind of change your scenery for a little bit. And then as we get past the 4th, you know, reach out to us today. You can go ahead and schedule something for after when you come back from the 4th. Go ahead and get your planning done. If you've not done your planning before, now's the time to do it. If now when you have a little bit more free time and you are at home and you're not doing it, if you're not going to do it now, you're not really going to do it ever. So the thing is, you want to go ahead and move forward with it now. And, you know, you wouldn't go buy, you know, cheap to go get, you know, a cheap haircut, you know, go out and get like cheap plastic surgery. You don't want to go and everything that you've worked to accumulate your whole life and everything you've been doing so far and where it's turned out, you don't want to do that on the cheap. So, and I'm not saying we're expensive, but we're not LegalZoom. But what it is, it's personalized. So we're working with you, and like I said, there's different price points. We have plans that start out right at 1,000. We have plans that go up to 10,000. That's more advanced planning for people. But there's different options. So, you know, reach out to us, kind of talk about what's going on with you and your family, and let's make sure that we get plans in place that's going to work no matter what's going on with you or your family. So, you know, I want to wish everybody a great summer. Everybody stay safe.
Yeah, same from me. Thank you for joining, everybody, and happy 4th of July.